Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Two amazing guests for you today. Michelle Schaub will be here to celebrate two of her books, A Place for Rain and Leafy Landmarks. And later in the show, we'll be meeting Ty Trotter. He's celebrating Welcome to My World. Before we invite our guests into the studio, we want to let you know that we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Danny's Reading Problem, written by Nita Clark and illustrated by her daughter, Kathy Doherty. This is a warm, heartwarming, and insightful children's book that addresses the challenges of learning to read through the lens of family support, creativity, and determination. The story beautifully illustrates how love, patience, and a little humor can transform a daunting problem into an opportunity for growth and connection. The book centers on Danny, a young man struggling with reading and feeling downhearted. His grandparents are determined to help him overcome this challenge during his visit while his parents are away at a science conference. The story unfolds with light-hearted moments and valuable lessons as Grammy and Gramps combine their wisdom and humor to guide Danny on his journey to becoming a confident reader. One of the book's strengths is its portrayal of intergenerational friendships. The relationship between Danny and his grandparents is depicted with warmth and affection, making it easy for readers to connect with the characters. Grammy and Gramps are both endearing and relatable, with Gramps providing comic relief through his corny jokes and playful antics, while Grammy takes on a more thoughtful and structured approach to help Danny understand the complexity of the English language. We absolutely love this book. We think that Danny's Reading Problem is an excellent resource for both parents and educators, offering practical insights into how to approach reading difficulties in a way that is both fun and effective. It provides a roadmap for how to turn a potentially stressful situation into a positive experience filled with laughter, love, and learning. Overall, Nita Clark has crafted a touching and impactful story that not only helps children who may be struggling with reading, but also reinforces the importance of family, creativity, and the power of encouragement. Danny's Reading Problem is a must-read for young readers and their family, offering a delightful blend of humor, wisdom, and inspiration. We really love this book. We think you and your family will too. It's Danny's Reading Problem, written by Nita Clark, illustrated by her daughter, Kathy Doherty. Congratulations. It's our latest Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Hey, my friends, when should you start to talk to your kids about money? Well, if you ask me, I would say as soon as possible. Helping our kids become financially literate is so very important. And thanks to owningthedash.com, talking to your kids about money and finances is easier than ever. Anthony Delaunay is a financial dad advisor and the founder of Owning the Dash LLC, an organization dedicated to promoting childhood financial literacy and family financial freedom. Delaunay has written a series of award-winning children's picture books that each teach basic lessons about money. He has also authored 2 financial self-help books geared towards helping young couples start their financial journey and towards helping older couples prepare for their transition into retirement. Owning the Dash empowers families by providing books, games, and activities that introduce fundamental financial lessons in a fun and engaging way, encouraging kids to think about certain scenarios and how they might respond, and help prepare kids for when they have to make important money decisions later in their life. All 5 of Anthony's books have been named Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Reads and would make a great addition to your family library. To learn more, please visit owningthedash.com. This episode is brought to you by Daphne Draws Data. From the imaginative mind of best-selling author Cole Nussbaumer Knaflick and the vibrant illustrations of John Skewers comes a story that will captivate kids and grown-ups alike. Daphne is not your ordinary dragon. She doesn't breathe fire. She breathes life into numbers, turning them into pictures that solve mysteries, forge friendships, and save the day. Daphne's journey celebrates unique talents, the power of teamwork, and the beauty of seeing the world through a different lens. This dragon's tale is perfect for parents and educators to inspire the next generation of curious minds and innovative thinkers. Get your copy today. Daphne Draws Data. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Colorado. Our guest is here today to celebrate 2 books that came out in the same month. Please welcome to the show the author of A Place for Rain and also Leafy Landmarks. Our guest is Michelle Schaub. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jed. Thanks for having me today.
I'm delighted to have you on. What a unique experience. 2 books coming out in the same month. That must have been thrilling.
It was quite amazing, and they came out in the same week. One came out March 12th, one came out March 15th.
Wow.
So March was a very busy month for me.
I was going to say, it must have been very exciting and exhausting at the same time.
Yes. In a way, it was nice because when I did my book launch and different events, I did 2 books. And I just, everything I did, I just brought both books and talked about both books. But as far as social media posts and interviews, it was double the trouble.
I'm sure. We always talk to aspiring authors and authors, especially indie authors, that, when you set out to write a book, you're actually launching a small business and you are the CEO of the business. And like any business, you should have a plan. But sometimes plans go awry and you can't plan everything.
Yes, that is true. I mean, I definitely have a plan when I go about things. Luckily for both books, Sleeping Bear Press is the publisher of Leafy Landmarks, and Norton Young Readers is the publisher of A Place for Rain. And both the publicists were very helpful as far as planning bookstore events and making sure that the books got reviewed. But I also had my own plan. I always have what I call a launch team. And that is friends and family, neighbors, other writers who are willing to boost me for that month. And I give them all kinds of options, whatever your comfort level is. Maybe it's just you're telling my book about your neighbor. Maybe you're requesting my book from the library, because if you're a patron of a library, all you have to do is go in and say, I would like this book to be on the shelf. That's a simple thing you can do for authors. Another wonderful thing is leaving reviews on Goodreads, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. So I just ask them, any of those things that you could do, if you could help me for this month. And so I gather together however many people I can, and that's my launch team. And that really helps spread the word.
Yeah, good planning. Well, let's jump into it. Let's start with A Place for Rain. What a great title. Tell us all about this book.
Yeah, so A Place for Rain is about a classroom that builds a rain garden to lessen all the rainstorm mess. Now, a rain garden is a type of green infrastructure, and it's basically a garden that's built into a shallow bowl, and you divert water from downspouts from homes to have it collect. So you capture and filter water where it is instead of allowing it to run over non-permeable surfaces like sidewalks and driveways and streets, because then it ends up down the drain into our waterways, into lakes and streams and rivers, and that water often carries pollutants. So if you can capture it where it is, that's a wonderful thing. So this classroom notices the rainstorm mess and they ask, can we lessen all this mess? And their teacher says yes. And so together as a class, they build a rain garden. So it's a lyrical story of a class coming together to do something to help the environment. And in the process of building the rain garden, they also plant native plants. So they have a pollinator garden on top of it with beautiful native plants growing.
That's wonderful. That's so important, and I think really empowering to, teach kids at a very young age that there are simple things that they can do to make the world a better place.
Absolutely. And that's basically the reason that I write books. I like to think of myself and others as just little pebbles you're dropping in the stream, and you might think your actions are small, especially in the face of, things that you hear on the news, doom and gloom about climate change. But these little pebbles have ripples. And if we all drop little pebbles in the stream or in the lake or wherever we're putting our actions, they add up. So I like that word empower. I try to empower readers that there are things you can do every day, little actions, choices you can make to help the earth, and they do add up.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you take this approach. We created a short series of podcast episodes called Protecting the Planet with Your Kids. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to, combat's not the right word, but we wanted to offer an alternative perspective to all the, as you said, the doom and gloom, the world's going to end in 12 years. We don't do something. And it's like, if it's going to end in 12 years, there's probably not a lot we can do. So I'm really happy that you're taking a real positive approach to this issue and getting kids to think positively.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the way to do it. And just simple, actionable steps that you can take. All of my books have something related to nature and the environment that you can go out and do with your family. Read the book and then go out and do something.
Yeah. And I love the whole idea of creating a garden for pollinators. We are blessed here, my beautiful wife and I, our home it's within the city limits of Boston, so big city. But we are as far away from downtown Boston as you can be and still be within city limits. In fact, if you climb over my fence, you're in a different city. But if you climb over my fence, you're in a wildlife sanctuary. And it's really beautiful. And we have we didn't call it a pollinator garden. When we created it, we just said, let's throw some flowers in here. And we threw some seeds down, and it's fun to sit and watch the butterflies come and all the different little creatures that are dancing around in the flowers.
Absolutely. There's a page that I love in A Place for Rain, and Blanca Gomez is the illustrator, and she is just amazingly talented. There's so many bright colors in this book, but one of the pages is a spread, and it says, ooh, look at all the flowers bloom. And then we welcome friends that hum, buzz, flutter to a pollinator feast, and then you see all of these flowers there and all of the different pollinators. There are dragonflies and butterflies and hummingbirds and bees, and they're all just in this feast on this page of pollinators. And they're actually, I'm really excited because there is a follow-up book coming. Ooh. Blanca Gomez will also illustrate it, and it's by Norton, and it's called A Pathway for Pollinators, and that's about pollinator corridors. So what you and your wife did actually is helping with pollinator corridors. If you plant just little gardens that all connect through an urban area, it gives pollinators a place to go and to find food.
Very cool. Very cool. Hey, you mentioned hummingbirds. I've only seen a hummingbird twice in my life. I'm almost 100. But the first time I was one time I was in California, and that was kind of cool coming out of a hotel. I was like, oh, what a surprise. But the first time I saw a hummingbird, I was lying in my hammock, and all of a sudden this teeny weeny little bird started flying about and, going into the flower that was right over where the hammock was. And I was just like so amazed, and I was trying not to breathe because I didn't want to disturb it. I wanted to watch it as long as I could.
They are pretty amazing. We get quite a few. We have a pollinator garden out in front, and they're like little helicopters, the way they move.
They really are. It's incredible. There's such a teeny little body, and those wings are flapping. And what a neat thing. My kids were grown by the time I saw the hummingbird, but what a neat thing to be able to see with your kids. Yeah.
And especially if you created the momentum for the hummingbird to be invited to your garden. We put these plants in, and now look who's coming.
Look at that. Look at that. Well, let's also talk about Leafy Landmarks, Travels with Trees. This is a neat title.
Thank you so much. This book is, I'm so proud of this book because it had a long road to publication. I wrote it about 18 years ago, and it's a winding road with lots of detours. But it's such a fun book because it's poetry. It's a family road trip to visit historic trees around the country. So you have the tallest trees in the world, which are the coast redwoods in California. You have trees that have gone to the moon, and there are moon trees all over the country, but I specifically focus on one that is at a Girl Scout camp in Indiana. These trees as seeds went up to the moon in astronauts' packs and then came back to the earth and were planted. There's a tree that is a wishing tree in the Seattle area where people tie wishes to the tree, and there are thousands and thousands of wishes. So the family takes the road trip all around the United States to visit these trees, and each tree has a poem and then a sidebar with more information about the tree. So you have geography, and you have poetry, and you have nature, and you have science. So it's all layered in there, and it was really fun to write. And I have so many experts that reviewed this. There's a huge paragraph in the back that thanks all of the different experts, the botanists and the arborists and the scientists and the museum curators who helped me with all of the information. So yes, I'm just really proud of this book. It's one of those books that you can just go back to over and over again. And the illustrator, Anne Lambelet, is just amazing what she did to bring these trees to life and give them personality and bring the histories with each tree to life also.
Yeah. You mentioned trees having a personality. We had for years here in our home, we had this beautiful oak tree. Unfortunately, we had to take it down a couple of years ago, but it was certainly the center of our home. It was right in the center of our property, but it also was where we tied a tire swing. And it's the tree that the kids climbed on. It's the tree that we sat underneath while reading with books and looking up into the leaves and imagining. And it was a place where originally my hammock swung from. And I just miss that tree so much. It was such a beautiful, beautiful tree.
Yeah, we as humans we have connections with trees, and they're obviously very important to the environment. There's so many things, and we learn more and more every day about how trees help the earth, but also just culturally, they're so important. And the last poem, after the family goes all over and visits these trees, they go back home, and the last poem is My Landmark Tree, and it's about the tree in their yard and how important that tree is to them and to their life, and how it's been there for them through all the important moments.
You mentioned space tree or moon tree?
Moon trees.
Moon trees. I've never heard of a moon tree. Tell me a little bit more about that story.
So the moon trees, and they are all over the country. But what's interesting is a lot of them were kind of lost to history. So the moon trees went up as seeds as part of one of the Apollo missions. They were put in an astronaut's pack, and it was, part of a study to see, what happens. What will happen to seeds if they're in space and come back and are planted? And they found out there wasn't really a difference. Once the seeds came back to Earth and were planted, they grew like the trees that were always earthbound. But these trees were distributed and planted all over the country. But then people kind of forgot about them. So a NASA scientist, Dave Williams, rediscovered the moon trees and started researching them. And so now on the NASA website, there is, he has a catalog of where these trees are. So when people find the trees, because sometimes they have plaques that were put up originally, they let Dave know. And so he's cataloged them, and you can find them in all different places around the country. But they were on the moon as seeds.
That's wild. It kind of boggles my mind. We're talking about the hummingbird, and it's so tiny, and it's doing all these things. That tree that I was talking about in our backyard that grew, it was enormous. It's to the point where all the other trees in the area are all kind of tilted because it had to, the trees had to adjust to get some sunlight. All of that came from a tiny little seed.
Yeah.
It's really kind of mind-boggling when you think about it.
It is amazing. Yeah.
And
the thing about trees, they don't live forever. In fact, I just went back to the origin of this story, where I first got the idea, the Morton Arboretum in Lisle, Illinois, where I used to take my kids when they were small to instill that love of trees that I always had. And we would picnic under a tree. And it was the Millennium Landmark tree for Illinois. And it was designated as the Millennium Landmark tree because it was a spot where the Potawatomi people would camp. And that gave me the idea. The whole first made that connection of, wow, trees witness history. Trees hold these moments. And that's where the spark of the idea came. So I went back to find the tree just a few months ago, and it wasn't there anymore. I looked all over it because I knew where it was, and I'm looking around. I'm like, it's just a big field. Where's the tree? So I asked one of the arborists, and they told me that it had gotten sick. But what was amazing is that there were a bunch of other bur oak trees, just small ones, all around the edge of this field. And I like to think that those were the babies of this tree. So trees reproduce, trees have seeds. So even when, that one special tree might not be around anymore, there are the offspring of the tree, and then you can plant the seeds of that tree. So you can, keep that, they regenerate in that way.
Ah, so neat, so neat. And I'm imagining a conversation with our kids about the seeds and what they can grow into would be, again, another really kind of empowering moment that we can have with our kids, just letting them know that great things are in their future.
Absolutely. Yeah. From a little acorn, mighty oaks grow.
Yeah. You mentioned that it took 18 years for Leafy Landmarks to come to life. Where did you get the persistence to keep at it?
Well, I was working on other projects. It wasn't the only thing I was working on for 18 years. And I, have published other books in between, but as a writer, you have to have persistence because it is a long road and you will face a lot of rejection, and you just need to keep learning your craft, going to conferences, finding a community of writers who can support you along the way, and you just keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great message. What kind of conversations do you think we can have with our kids as we're reading both of these books?
Oh, wow. Well, I think with A Place for Rain, particularly talking about where water goes, the importance of keeping our water clean and conserving water, but then where water goes when it runs off. I have been doing several school visits with this book, and, some kids know, some kids don't know, and explaining the importance of, this water goes into our streams, and there are animals that live in the streams that we need to protect. So the importance of keeping water clean. And then the other part about A Place for Rain is just the importance of native plants and how their roots go deep, deep, deep into the earth, and they help guide the rain down into the underground area, into the aquifers. And they filter it along the way, but they also hold the soil in. They help with erosion. And as we talked about already, they invite pollinators to the garden. So there's so many of those sort of segues or into talking about nature and the environment. And I have back matter that gets more into that you can, dig into. All of my books have back matter. I'm a former teacher, so I like to put that extra layer in for, hey, those kids who are curious and want to know more, here's more information. But the other thing that's really fun about about A Place for Rain reading out loud is it has a lot of fun. It's onomatopoeia is what it's called, but those are words that sound like their meaning. So I purposefully wanted the book to sound like the rain, like water. So I have a lot of sound words, water words in there. So when you read it out loud, you can hear all of those water sounds. In fact, it starts plink, plip, plop. We watch the water drop. And then the whole story kind of unfolds with that, with those fun sounds. So just having the kids listen and what other sounds do water make? And having those conversations about that language is really fun.
Cool. Going back to Leafy Landmarks, did you have a favorite tree?
Oh, I get that question from kids when I do school visits. In the book, every one of them is special in their own way, and they're also unique. And we chose them because they're each a different species. They're in different parts of the country. They have different histories. So everyone is amazing. But for myself, personally, I have a couple of trees that were really important in my life. One was my grandmother in her front yard had this giant blue spruce that took up her entire front yard. And you could tell almost a mile away that we were getting close to my grandmother's house because you could see the tree. So we used to play under that tree, and that was really special. And then I had another tree that when I was in college, it was a giant sycamore tree, and you could climb up into it, and it would almost hold you in the cradle of its trunk. And I would just sit up there with whatever book I needed to read for class and just watch people go by and just sit in that tree and feel comfortable and, like the tree was giving me a hug. So it was very reassuring to have that tree when I was away from home.
So neat. Is there a way to find out where all these trees are? So if a family picked up Leafy Landmarks and said, yeah, let's do a road trip and find all these different trees.
Yes. Well, there's a map at the beginning. The first poem also contains, it's called Hit the Road, and there's a map that shows where the trees are in the country. And then on each page, there's the location, the species and the location of the tree. So you can find them that way. Absolutely.
That's neat. Well, if anybody out there is listening and they pick up Leafy Landmarks and they take that trip around the country, you got to tag me in a post so we can find out about it.
And me too. I love seeing the road trips.
Tell us where we can go to find out more about A Place for Rain and Leafy Landmarks, and also find out more about you.
Absolutely. My website, which is michelleschaub.com, has the information on all of my books and my background as an author and the school visits that I do. I love going and visiting students in person and virtually, so all that information is on there.
Excellent. We've had a great time speaking to the author of A Place for Rain and also Leafy Landmarks, Travels with Trees. Our guest has been Miss Michelle Schaub. Michelle, thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for spending your morning with me.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly joy maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Join us right now from beautiful Baton Rouge in the state of Louisiana. Our guest is here today to celebrate his brand new debut picture book. It's called Welcome to My World. Please welcome to the show, Ty Trotter. Hey, Ty, how are you?
Hello there. I'm all right. How are you?
Wonderful. Excited to have you on. Tell us all about Welcome to My World.
So Welcome to My World it is a book about two sisters who are going through the day of their life, and they encounter some blind people or visually impaired. And it's going to more or less touch on three types of visually impaired people or blind people and educate and show how they cope with the world around them. And it shows how people are people, where they may seem to have a disability, but some have coped way more or adapted way better than others, and some may just be what we would call average people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, this is certainly a subject that's near and dear to my heart. Back in 1989, I created a disabilities awareness video. I wrote and performed in it and produced it, and that was the central message of that video. It was called Melt Down the Walls to Separate, and the main point of the video is to help kids understand that people with challenges and disabilities are people and they can be great friends.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that there are three types there are people with three different types of visual impairment. Can you talk a little bit about those differences?
Okay, well, I touch on the ability of the vision impaired because I'm a member of the NFB, National Federation of the Blind, and I was in a meeting recently, and we discussed that they use the term they prefer more like low vision opposed to blind. Many don't like the term blind. More the older people are okay with it, but we all, I guess, mature, develop at our own pace. And if you have some vision, you want to be recognized as vision or low vision, even though, but in this book, I cover one guy who's completely blind, but he uses a technique that's called echolocation. Another person is just your average person who's blind, and they show regular, everyday ways that you can apply it to your life, things you may have never thought about. It's somewhat, I don't want to say a game, but it gives you an exercise to practice or try if you choose to. And you can see how your hearing is compared to the instructions that the guy in the book gives to one of the characters or one of the sisters that he's educating or informing.
You mentioned that one of the characters uses echolocation. I know when I was young, my dad worked for the telephone company, and they had a group of volunteers within that organization called the Pioneers, and I think they were the first ones to come up with the idea of putting a sound into a softball so that kids with visual impairment could play softball. As the ball was getting closer, they could hear it. And I just think that's fascinating. How does someone use echolocation to get around?
Okay, there's a popular guy. He has a school on the West Coast that educates, and you don't have to be visually impaired to learn echolocation. So it's not just for the visually impaired, but it's geared toward that. But um, the guy who I met person to person, who I kind of borrowed his technique in the book, is he uses his fingers and the sound of his finger snapping, and he navigates the world throughout that. He identified what he's in front of him, where he's going, and it's all from a sound, not the sound, the echo of the finger snap.
Wow.
I've seen there's the guy, like the guy I mentioned from the West Coast, who has a school. He uses his mouth to echolocate, and he can ride a bike. So it's almost limitless to, it's similar to that with bat shoes or sonar radars. So radars don't move, but with echolocation, you're constantly resurveying your environment because you're the moving part in that equation.
Mm-hmm. That's really fascinating. Is this something that somebody could use, like in a busy, noisy city like New York City?
They can, yes, they can. It all depends on the level you have trained, pinpoint. But of course, distractions and things of that nature comes even when you have sight, because you can be looking where you're going, and all those with 20/20 have tripped and stumbled once, and it has nothing to do with your vision. It's a level of attention and awareness of your environment. So the technique helps them, but also most people still carry a cane.
Okay.
Or you are advised, if you use the technique, to still carry a cane, so others would know that you're visually impaired and minimize any misunderstanding.
Yeah. Tell me, Ty, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, one, my parents are blind. Been blind all my life. Let me say that. I'm a member of a national organization for the blind. There's multiple organizations now, but the one I'm part of believes that blind people or visually impaired should be able to do for themselves, not necessarily have someone speak for them. We want to speak for ourselves, hear us out, and that's where it circles back to we all are people, respect, love, things like that. We want, regardless if we tall, short, or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into that, like as you asked, because my parents are blind or my mother is blind, but then she wasn't just blind. She was blind, and then she became an educator or a teacher, public school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And after I did that, I actually found this. I knew she was a teacher, but I found out more about her during COVID, and to sit down and we got to talk more. I was like, my goodness, you did all this? And she was like, yeah, that was way before your time. And I was like, okay. So I want the visually impaired and blind to understand that there may be extra hassle and discouragement, but it's not necessarily a limitation on their life. And likewise with those with the lack of a better word, considered normal.
Mm-hmm. You know, we love the fact that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And obviously, I think this book would be a great inspiration for anybody that is visually challenged or anybody facing any kind of challenge to get out there and really do. I think your mom's story is incredible. But I also love the fact that this book can give people with typical vision a chance to look in and meet somebody, or in this case, three characters who have a visual impairment, and get to know them and get to know that they are human beings and can be fantastic friends.
Oh, yes, most definitely. And the techniques, it varies. Like not we all, but many people can walk, but everyone doesn't dance. And then you don't have to walk to dance.
Right.
So then it becomes, what is the essence of the topic? It's really just communicating. You have a statement you ask, what can you do to bring families closer? And one of those things is to learn how to communicate with each other. And when you start off your show with those multiple languages, that's a good step, because sometimes we look at others strangely because they may not speak or say hello like we say hello, but it's still a greeting, and they mean love with their greeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I really like to say that I was intentional, that I did that intentionally. But it really just kind of happened. It started when I was doing my educational magic shows, and I'm not somebody who likes to sit backstage waiting for the crowd to come in to jump out to a big thunderous round of applause. I'm a little bit too hyper for that. So I would always greet my audience as they were coming in, and I'd shake hands. And when you're greeting 400 kids, saying hello 400 times gets kind of boring. So I just started using it, hola, ni hao, how you doing? Nice to see you. And the kids started really, really get into it, and they were laughing. And so I just went with it, and it just grew and grew. And at some point I decided, well, that's a great way to start my show.
I would say you're ahead of your time, but it sounds like you're right on schedule. So yes, we need that. And you reached out. The only other thing I practice, I do that, and then I also like to say thank you in most of those languages. Yes. So like shukran, spasiba, and merci beaucoup, and just because hello and thank you go a long way. And again, to meet people and communicate and bring families closer, you tell someone hello, regardless if they're having a rotten day, and you tell them thank you, they'll reconsider their rotten day. It may not be so rotten anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. I'm not fluent in I'm barely fluent in English. But when my beautiful wife and I travel, I always try to learn how to say hello, how to say thank you, and then how to say, I'm sorry, I don't speak your language. Can you help me out with English? And anytime I do that, it's, the people just greet me with a big smile, and they're really warm and really willing to help out. And unlike most people here in the United States, people in other countries, they know more than one language, so it works out really well.
Yeah, they do. Again, that communication thing come into play. But yeah, I guess when I say we, I mean Americans, United States side, we coming around to it. Whether we like it or not, we definitely need to learn more than what our birth tongue is.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the things I have a lot of Spanish, and I notice when I'm traveling in a Spanish country, especially by myself, I try to think in the language, and I start to think differently. I see things in a different way just because of the way the language is structured differently, and it's really neat, and it's really beneficial. And I think anybody, it's a real plus for any kid if they learn a language, especially when they're kids. It's so easy for them to pick it up.
Oh yes, that's when I began to. Let's start with a curiosity, and usually children are considered the ones with the most curiosity. But we probably should not abandon that as adults and continue to learn, because if you're not growing older, the only other option is not grow at all, right. And we don't want to go the other way.
Right.
So,
tell me, Ty, did you always dream of being a children's author?
Not at all. I had no intentions of writing any books. I couldn't read until I was 16.
Wow.
So when that came along, I couldn't. I can tell you this: big words were words like river. If it was more than 3 alphabets, I was in trouble.
Wow.
And that went on till I was good in high school, and my behavior and my pleasantries kept and willingness not to get into too much trouble kept me straight. And the teachers, like, well, they work with me. They knew I can do math pretty decent. So they realized I wasn't quitting on myself. It's just that it wasn't there. So then a few might have thought dyslexic, but it wasn't that. It's just I didn't know how to read, or I wasn't a reader. And through years of work and due diligence, eventually I got able to get past 3 alphabets to maybe words like river. And even I still wasn't too great of a reader, but I started to see the importance. See, before I had a grandmother who couldn't read either, but she seemed accomplished to me. She had her own land, she had her own farm, she was so self-sufficient and reliant. I didn't think, I thought, well, she's doing pretty good, got 2 houses, she can't read a word. But I realized reading, you can live and have a decent life without reading, possibly. But it gets you, it's like that extra, I don't want to say the icing on the cake. Right. Because you can have this without reading, certain things without reading. But if you can read, it can make that life a little easier, because instead of searching around for clues, you can read directly what the sign says.
Right. We had Malcolm Mitchell, who was a Super Bowl winning member of the New England Patriots, and he shared his story that, like a lot of athletes, he was just passed through. And when he arrived at college, he realized that he wasn't able to read. And he decided that, no, that was unacceptable, and he taught himself how to read by reading picture books.
Oh, yeah, now I will agree. Picture books are a high commodity. I remember I got into a tussle, not quite a full-fledged fight, but it was enough blows thrown. It was a tussle over a picture book. We must have been, me and the other guy might have been 15, 16 in the library. I don't know if he could read, but I know we was going to have to read this book in front of the class or whatever we had to do. And I was like, well, I don't want to get a novel by Robert Frost or anything. So I said, let me get this book. He had pictures, and it was very minimum lines, maybe a sentence per page. And we got into a tussle over there, and I was like, no one knew why I was so passionate about getting this book, but I was like, I definitely needed this book because that's the only book I know I could read. And that was one of the things I think helped me realize I don't want to get in a fight over a coloring book every time. Let me learn to improve myself somewhat. So I got better, and I would buy toys. At times, like back with G.I. Joe and them had little profiles. I couldn't necessarily read it, but I was very interested in the profile of the action figure or the characters. And that kind of propelled me or led me to, or beckoned me to learn to read. And I got to say, I don't regret it. I'm not one of those people that read everything that passes in front of my face, but I'm glad I'm able to read. And because of that, I hear many adults are illiterate and children. And I think if they knew that it's never too late, or we all grow at our own pace, they wouldn't be ashamed or so disheartened. Even if you're an adult and you're unable to read, and writing and reading is not the same. I could draw, I can write, I knew all my alphabets. I just sounding out and spelling, all that just wasn't my strong suit. So I would say it's never too late to learn. You have and try to get away from, if the crowd you're around don't value what you want to value, you may have to find a new crowd.
Yeah. Wise words indeed. Tell me, how does it feel now that Welcome to My World is just about out into the world?
It feels great because I'm also working on a part 2 of that. So it feels great. I get to I get to bring attention to the vision impaired, blind, or low vision, whichever term we're going to use. And that's one thing. And I want people to realize that blind people are not dumb because, like I said, people are people. You have some people who are maybe smarter than others, and that has nothing to do with their sight. So likewise, the book before that I wrote, ended up writing a book on the first totally blind East Baton Rouge Parish school teacher. And I tell her story about how she became a teacher, some of the college she went to, the things she traveled and went through. And she did a lot of traveling with a cane a king and a guide dog. That was routine. We expect that, well, that's commonplace with blind people, canes and guide dogs. But the echolocation wasn't as widely known, so I thought I would add that to this current book. But those are things that I really, I guess, somewhat passionate to, bringing attention to that, so that those who are visually impaired or blind understand they have options, and those who just don't know how to interact with the blind, I also have something in there for them too, the somewhat tidbits, because some people are more familiar than others, but sometimes we don't mean to be rude or thoughtless, but we're sometimes just ignorant. We are unfamiliar with this territory, and that goes beyond just blind. It's cultures, and sometimes gender. A male might say a statement that's insensitive to a female, and we think nothing of it. Or likewise, an ethnicity group may not think of another when they say something, and it just wasn't something readily on our mind. Right. We meant no harm. We didn't mean any of that, but it came across wrong because we weren't aware of such.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Welcome to My World. Yes,
you can keep an eye out for it under Tyron Trotter, Tyron, Trotter, last name Trotter, and it should be available. Well, once I get the audiobook done, it should be available on Apple, should be in libraries, and I also expect it to be more places, and there will be a website for it and other things coming.
Wonderful. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Welcome to My World. It is a debut picture book from our guest, Ty Trotter. Ty, thanks so much for being with us.
All right, thank you, and have a great day.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we hope it inspired you to join us for the next exciting episode of the show. We also hope it might have inspired you to write a review of the show on whatever podcasting app you are listening to on, especially if you're listening over at Spotify. We'd really love to boost the number of reviews we have on that site. It really does help spread the word about the podcast. We'd love for you to also to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at JedleyMagic on X. We have a great YouTube channel where you can find our Drawing With Your Kids and Stimmus Family Fun videos. It is youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And of course, we'd love for you to visit our website. All sorts of great information on our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our blog and read our entire review for Danny's Reading Problem, written by Nita Clark, our latest Reading With Your Kids certified great read. If you look at the top of the page, you can find a contact button that will allow you to send us a message. Let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what we could be doing better. And let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the podcast. And if you are an author and you'd like to be a guest on Reading With Your Kids, be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. Being a guest gives you the chance to tell thousands of people all over the world about your fantastic children's book. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Michelle Schaub. Please be sure to check out A Place for Rain. And Ty Trotter, please be sure to check out his Welcome to My World book. My team, they deserve a big thank you. Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Judy Hu, Stella Sheree, Hannibal Sanj, Alyssa Montiero, Devin Hill, Riley Oluwu. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.